An economic bubble is a period in which the price of an asset rises way above its actual value due to speculative demand and expectations of future price increases. There have been many over the years that you may have heard of. The dot-com bubble of the late 1990s, the US housing bubble, which led to the 2008 financial crash, or even railway mania. An event triggered by the craze around the new technology taking Great Britain by storm. Trains. In the mid-19th century, several new railway companies would be established and would promise financially literate investors huge returns. This operation would eventually blow up in everybody's face when it was revealed that the expected number of passengers was far below the actual number, along with the fact that even the main island of Great Britain has a total area of about 40 meters, meaning there was a lot of companies competing for routes. A lesser known instance of this phenomena is the Soundcloud Rap Bubble. In the mid to late 2010s, SoundCloud's status as a free music streaming platform that anyone could post on would attract a lot of young talent and a lot of young people looking for fresh music. However, this whole movement would come crashing down due to a myriad of factors. So today we will discuss the rise and fall of SoundCloud, what caused the bubble to burst, and what happened to some of the artists who failed to fully establish themselves during that time. Before we continue, it is important to note that what happened to SoundCloud Rap is not a one-off instance. Music is a business of trends, and very few of these last for more than 10 years. This is the life cycle of a typical musical movement. The current trend of the time becomes stale, and in its place, a new cutting-edge sound and aesthetic would take over. Eventually, the industry would take over that sound, making it stale, and the cycle continues. So SoundCloud Rap would have its moment and fall off like most musical fads. However, there are many things that separated SoundCloud from other trends. Firstly, SoundCloud Rap blew up almost completely organically, especially in the earlier stages. It was not like before, where artists were groomed by record labels and then given the spotlight. It was authentic artists making whatever they felt like at the time and posting it for the world to hear. Secondly, the nature of the internet at the time meant that you could literally blow up out of nowhere. If you got the right repost, hung out with the right people, or just happened to be at the right place at the right time, you could go up. For example, YB and Namir would go from GTA gangster to internet phenomenon after his video for Rubbing Off the Paint would release on Worldstar Hip Hop's YouTube page and go super viral. The SoundCloud era would emerge from the tail end of the blog era and the party rap era. A lot of old heads would try to convince you that lyrical rap was still what made an artist at this time. But what was really big was structured pop songs that happened to feature some rapping. Think of rappers like Drake and Nicki Minaj, with artists like Macklemore,
Wipe the bass and clean the PP,
and Iggy Azalea also getting their shine. Alongside those guys, there were waves happening concurrently, like the rise of Atlanta trap and the Chicago drill scene. As for SoundCloud, early originators would be groups like Young Lean and the Sad Boys, as well as Graffiti Boys Shield Gang. From South Florida, you would have Space Ghost Perp and his Raider Clan affiliates, and you can throw Metro Zoo and his affiliates in there too. It is worth putting Gothboy Click in there as well, as Lil Tracy's early work would also be important to the overall development of SoundCloud. Music in this era was actually pretty experimental. A lot of it was very DIY, and incorporated foreign elements never before seen in rap. Graffiti Boys, for example, would mix elements of European dance music with Chicago drill instrumentals, heavily reverberated auto-tune vocals, and lyrics more akin to medieval poetry than a rap song. That being said, there were also more mainstream sounding artists on the platform making a name, such as Chance the Rapper, Bryson Tiller, and Post Malone. As time moved on, more styles would emerge, such as plug and emo rap. The SoundCloud model of allowing anyone to post music, along with a robust discovery algorithm, would attract a lot of users to the site, and with this push, SoundCloud would become the platform for new artists to get their music heard. While this grassroots system encouraged creativity and uniqueness, many did not appreciate the deviation from rap's original roots. A lot of rap traditionalists associate the genre with things like lyrical ability, storytelling, and overall penmanship. The new generation, however, was more concerned with the everyday struggle of keeping their dick in their pants. The 2016 XXL freshman class is commonly referenced as the choke point between conventional rap styles and the new school. This cipher in particular would actually be really controversial at the time, as many old heads would complain that rappers were no longer focusing on lyrics and were instead more focused on the vibes and the flow. This video is looked back on pretty fondly nowadays, but back when it came out, trust me, there were a lot of negative comments. So what was the reason rap started to sound so different? Well, there's actually a long list of them. For one, the concept of lyrical rap had gotten stale, and the younger audience wanted something more exciting. Who the fuck wanted to listen to conscious hip hop? Bro, I can't even spell that shit. This rebellious attitude was more reminiscent of punk rock than traditional hip hop. Secondly, rap music was already going through a change outside of SoundCloud. The charts were being dominated by trap innovators like Future and Young Thug, and they would have a huge impact on the new generation of artists. If you were to ask a SoundCloud rapper who his biggest influence is, they would most likely say Chief Keef. After breaking into hip-hop's elite at only 17 years old with his debut album, Finally Rich, Chief Keef's next few records would go on to define modern rap. Projects like Bang 2 and Almighty So were completely panned by critics, but were loved by the newer generation and would go on to inspire a whole new sound. Aside from his innovative flows and otherworldly beat selection, Chief Keef's output at the time stood out for its DIY aspect. The albums had amateur mixing, and some of the songs sounded like they were recorded in a fucking barbershop. But it was this down-to-earth aspect, along with his overall punk image, that would make him the biggest influence in modern rap, someone who many would try to imitate. SoundCloud Rap reached its peak in 2017. At this point, the platform had properly established itself as the #1 source to find new music, with the top songs on the site regularly getting tens of millions of views, and SoundCloud artists would start to become recognized as mainstream. Many artists would have huge hit songs, such as 21 Savage, the Expat of London, Lil Yachty, the Polish Delegate, Playboi Carti, the reigning Vamp King, Kodak Black of Broward County, and Lil Uzi Vert, aka, Leslie. SoundCloud Rap had finally overcome the industry, as young artists making songs in their bedroom with amateur equipment would shake the foundation of music, and all was well in the world. But like the title of the video says, this was a bubble, and there was one song, and one man, that would signify that this bubble was about to burst. Now Gucci Gang was honestly a pretty unremarkable song. Yet somehow, Gucci Gang has racked up over 1.2 billion views and was one of the most viewed videos of 2017. Lil Pump was essentially the embodiment of this era. From the colored dreads to the face tattoos, to the brash, ignorant, and clout-chasing behavior. And despite not making the best music, he leveraged his clout chasing to essentially be the face of the SoundCloud rapper meme. The meme around SoundCloud rap was this: guy gets dreads, guy gets face tattoos, guy wears these glasses, guy lets Adam 22 fondle his balls, guy gets on beat with severely distorted 808, guy yells A and yeah ad-libs for the whole song, and guy gets no views and his music sucks. Basically the modernized version of the guy who is in an unsuccessful band but tells people that he's living life on the road and waiting for his big break. And this stereotype didn't exist for no reason. SoundCloud's biggest strength, being the fact that anyone can post on it, had become its biggest flaw. The app had become flooded with subpar, talentless artists. The problem would only be exacerbated when the industry would get involved. Now by the end of 2017, a lot of the popular artists who came up independently off of SoundCloud would get signed to major labels. And seeing how successful this was, the industry would only do what it does best: ruin everything, by introducing plans and trying to replicate their success. Some industry plans you may remember are people like Kid Buu and Jumex. Now most people recognize that these guys were obvious plans at the time, but they didn't go very far. Having industry planned SoundCloud artists was always going to be tough, considering that the whole appeal of SoundCloud was the DIY underground aspect. When you have guys coming in with high budget videos and studio level mixing, no one's going to be a fan just because he has colored dreads, especially when the music isn't even that good. Another factor that stunted SoundCloud Rap's growth was many of its most popular artists dying well before their time. The first major SoundCloud era death was Lil Peep. Lil Peep was the original face of emo rap, a popular subgenre mixing elements of rap and rock music. He had been making waves in the scene alongside his fellow Goth Boy Clique member, Lil Tracy. Lil Peep would tragically die from an overdose on November 15th, 2017. XXXTentacion was probably the biggest death of this time. X was a highly charismatic figure, known for his vulnerability and for being a down-to-earth person, frequently finding the time to talk to his fans on apps like Periscope. He originally came up alongside Ski Master Slump God as the 1-2 punch in the burgeoning South Florida trap metal scene. XXXTentacion would prove to be a highly versatile artist, dropping songs in a wide range of genres. He was unfortunately gunned down at a car dealership at the age of just 20 years old. Juice WRLD was the last star to come out of the SoundCloud era. I remember his come up quite well actually. Juice WRLD was a Chicago artist making songs in his room before he was discovered by Internet Money. I used to follow Internet Money at the time, and I remember Nick Mira would repost his songs on his Snapchat. He was a very talented rapper and songwriter, and was expected to achieve great things in the rap game. Unfortunately, at the age of 21, Juice WRLD would die from an overdose. All three of these artists have huge cult followings to this day, and were major losses for the scene. Since their death, labels have been milking their image for all it's worth, making posthumous albums to garner fan response, which is sad to see. These artists died very young and had a lot of potential.
25, 8, 6, 7, 8.
Post 2018, it was safe to say that SoundCloud Rap had basically died. But what exactly caused it? I would say it's not because the music had gotten worse. The era between 2019 to 2021 was actually one of the more underrated eras of underground rap. But there were other limiting factors. Firstly, SoundCloud has never really been that profitable. I don't know much about the specifics of how they made money, but they made far less than other music streaming apps. Chance the Rapper actually offered to front SoundCloud some cash just to keep it afloat in 2017, and Twitter, after investing $70 million in 2016, literally had to write off almost all of it as a loss less than 2 years later. SoundCloud was on the brink of financial collapse for years, but recently has managed to stay afloat. Another factor is that the app itself just did not get any better. Over the years, platforms like Spotify would just be much more user-friendly and better optimized for finding good music. And all that not to mention the rise of TikTok. TikTok was a real game changer. It allowed creators to cater songs to the app in hopes of getting a buzz, leading to the release of a lot of soulless, forgettable music. On TikTok, you could go way more viral than SoundCloud, and even though it was harder to build an audience on the app, there were much more opportunities available if you knew how to utilize them. We all know what most of the popular names from this era are doing. What happened to the rappers who didn't blow up during the SoundCloud bubble? Well, a lot of them are still making music to this day. Many SoundCloud rappers would continue to make music, having built strong fan bases over the years. For many other less successful artists, however, music would just not be worth it. Some would get regular jobs, some would go to jail, some would do porn, some would fake having cancer to scam on GoFundMe, and some... I don't even want to talk about it. The SoundCloud era, despite being pretty short-lived, was a great time for music. It was a time where the underground overcame the industry, real music shined, and authentic personalities were given the spotlight. And that is what makes this era so fondly remembered. The authenticity. Artists being themselves, and bending the rigid rules of hip-hop to their liking. You saw that graph I put about grunge in the 90s, and actually, I feel like the two movements were pretty similar. In the 80s, rock music was dominated by a genre called glam metal. If you are a white woman, like myself, or a white man, you may have heard your dad gush over bands like the Motley Crue or Bon Jovi. This was that era. It was a time where grown-ass men would walk around in makeup and spandex, and they would steal your girl with ease. It was excessively over-the-top party music, and songs were anthems with professional mixing and theatrical guitar solos. While it was a cool sound when it came out, it quickly became boring, and many copycats would start to emerge. Meanwhile in Seattle, a group of bands would mix the energy of punk with the sludginess of metal to create grunge, a more emotional and relatable iteration of alternative rock. Grunge would take the world by storm in 1991, when the video for Nirvana's song Smells Like Teen Spirit would be played on MTV. But grunge would face a similar fate to its predecessor. This time would get watered down, as many would try to copy its essence. Many bands would admit that their labels literally told them to make grunge songs to capitalize on the trend. Couple this with the death of the sound's biggest stars, and grunge would basically completely fall off by the end of the decade. Now trust me when I say that I am not comparing grunge and SoundCloud rap in terms of music, and I'm definitely not trying to compare Kurt Cobain and Juice WRLD or anything like that. The grunge movement is part of what made the 90s such an amazing time for music. People desired raw, unfiltered artists, not the recycled soap that was getting pushed by major labels. But anyways, that is all the yap for today. Thank you for watching once again. I'll be posting new videos on my second channel as well, so subscribe to that. The link is in the description. Also, I'll be starting the Trapology producer series soon, so if you're a producer, you can look forward to that. Stay tuned. And then, yeah, that is all. Thank you for watching once again, and y'all niggas gay.
Hello, my loyal subjects. It is I, your majesty, Little Pump. On this glorious day, we are celebrating the increase in taxes by cutting this specially made Xanax cake. Watch my precision as I cut the Xanax cake. Troy, cease with your insolence at once. Silence, Troy. Troy, I shall have you beheaded for your foolishness. You animal.